Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the control room, watching the massive screens that showed Earth spinning slowly below them. The space station felt different today. Everyone knew this was the day that would change everything. After 20 years of work, they were finally ready to test the quantum displacement drive. "All systems show green," said Dr. Lisa Grant from her station. She had worked alongside Marcus since the beginning of the project. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, checking each system one more time. "The energy readings are stable." Marcus nodded and looked around the room. 50 of Earth's best scientists and engineers were here today. They had built something that most people said was impossible, a machine that could fold space itself, creating doorways between distant stars. "Commander Sullivan, what's your status?" Marcus spoke into his headset. "All clear out here, Dr. Webb?" Jake Sullivan's voice came through clearly from his ship. "The Endeavor. We're holding position at the edge of the solar system, just like you asked. If something goes wrong, we'll be your eyes and ears." Marcus took a deep breath. The quantum displacement drive sat in the center of the solar system, a massive ring of metal and energy coils that stretched for thousands of miles. It had taken every resource Earth could spare to build it. Now they would find out if it worked. "Lisa, begin the startup sequence," Marcus said. The room filled with a low humming sound. On the screens, they could see the drive beginning to glow. Energy flowed through its massive structure like lightning trapped in metal. The scientists watched their instruments carefully. Everything looked perfect. "Energy at 50%, Lisa announced. "All readings normal." The humming grew louder. Marcus felt it in his bones now. A vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Outside, space itself began to shimmer around the drive. Reality bent and twisted in ways that hurt to look at. 75%, Lisa called out. "Wait, I'm seeing some unusual readings in Sector 7. Marcus looked at his own screen. The numbers were climbing faster than they should. "What kind of readings?" "The space around Earth is starting to resonate with the drive. It's like the planet is responding to the energy field. This wasn't supposed to happen. The drive was designed to create a small wormhole, big enough for a ship to pass through. It shouldn't affect anything as large as a planet. Should we shut it down?" asked Dr. Alex Thompson from the safety station. Marcus hesitated. They had one chance at this. If they stopped now, it might be years before they could try again. The energy readings were high, but still within the danger zone they had calculated. "Continue the test," Marcus decided. "But monitor everything closely." 100% power, Lisa announced. The drive exploded into brilliant light. Not the explosion they had feared, but something beautiful and terrible. The massive ring became a circle of pure energy, brighter than the sun. Space around it rippled like water. Then something impossible happened. The wormhole that formed wasn't small. It was huge, stretching across thousands of miles. And it wasn't stable. Instead of opening a doorway to another star, it seemed to be opening doorways everywhere and nowhere at once. "The field is expanding," Lisa shouted over the growing noise. "It's reaching toward Earth." Marcus watched in horror as tendrils of twisted space reached out from the drive. They moved slowly but steadily toward the planet. Where they touched, stars seemed to disappear, replaced by swirling darkness. "Evacuate the station," Marcus ordered. "Everyone to the escape pods now." But it was too late. The energy field had reached them. Marcus felt his body become light as if he was floating in water. The walls of the station became transparent, then faded away completely. He could see Lisa reaching toward him, her mouth open in a scream he couldn't hear. Then everything went white. Jake Sullivan watched from his ship as the impossible happened. The quantum drive had become something else, something that defied every law of physics he knew. The energy field spread outward like a bubble, and everything it touched simply vanished. First, the space station disappeared. Then the drive itself was gone. The field kept growing, reaching toward Mars, then Earth itself. "Computer, record everything," Jake said to his ship's systems. "Someone needs to know what happened here." The field touched Earth's moon first. The ancient satellite didn't explode or burn. It just stopped being there, as if it had never existed at all. Then the field reached Earth. Jake held his breath. 12 billion people lived on that planet. His wife and children were down there, probably looking up at the sky and wondering why it was getting brighter. Earth didn't fight the strange energy. The planet simply faded away, like a picture slowly losing its color. First, the blue oceans became transparent, then the brown and green continents. Finally, even the white clouds disappeared. The field continued outward, swallowing Mars and the asteroid belt. It reached Jupiter and consumed the giant planet and all its moons. Saturn's beautiful rings scattered like dust before they too vanished into nothing. Jake's ship was far enough away to escape, but just barely. He felt the edge of the field brush against his hull before it finally stopped growing. When it was over, the entire inner solar system was gone. Where Earth had been, there was only empty space and distant stars. Jake sat in his pilot's seat, staring at the emptiness. He was alone now, the last human in the universe as far as he knew. His home, his family, his entire species had vanished in the space of 10 minutes. "Computer, send a message to all human colonies," he said finally. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them Earth is gone." The computer's voice was calm and mechanical. "Message sent, Commander." "What are your orders?" Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were other human settlements, small colonies on distant worlds. They would be the only humans left now. They would have to carry on without Earth, without the billions of people who had just vanished. "Set course for Alpha Centauri," Jake said. "We need to warn the others." As his ship turned away from the empty space where Earth had been, Jake didn't know that his world hadn't been destroyed. Somewhere else in a place between dimensions, Dr. Marcus Webb and Dr. Lisa Grant were waking up to find that their experiment had worked in ways they never could have imagined. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her ship, the Defiance, looking out at the ruins of what had once been a beautiful world. The planet below had been home to the Catherine people, a peaceful race that loved art and music. Now it was nothing but smoking cities and empty fields. "Another one lost to the Empire," said Ben Carter, her chief engineer. He was young for his position, but 500 years of constant war had forced humanity's children to grow up fast. "That's the third world this month," Elena nodded sadly. The Zephyrian Empire had been conquering worlds for centuries, turning free peoples into slaves. Their insect-like ships swarmed through space like locusts, taking everything they wanted and destroying the rest. "Any survivors?" Elena asked. Amy Johnson, their medical officer, checked her scanner. "I'm reading about 1,000 life signs in the northern continent. They're hiding in the mountains." "Take us down," Elena ordered. "We'll evacuate as many as we can." Rick Palmer, the weapons officer, looked worried. "Captain, if the Empire ships come back while we're on the surface, then we fight," Elena said simply. "That's what we do." The Defiance was not a large ship. Elena's crew was only 30 people, all descendants of the human colonies that had survived Earth's disappearance 500 years ago. They were part of a small resistance movement that tried to help people escape from the Empire's rule. Most of the galaxy had forgotten that humans ever existed. The few who remembered thought of them as just another extinct race wiped out like so many others. Elena and her people were careful to keep it that way. If the Empire learned that humans still lived, they would hunt them down. The ship landed in a clearing near the mountains. Elena led a team outside where they found the Catherine survivors hiding in caves. The aliens were tall and thin, with silver skin that changed color when they were afraid. Right now, they were all showing deep purple, the color of terror. "We're here to help," Elena said through her translator. "We can take you to a safe world." An old Catherine stepped forward. His skin was more gray than silver, and his large eyes were filled with sadness. "You are the legend people," he said. "The ones who fight the Empire." Elena nodded. Many races had heard stories about the mysterious resistance fighters, but few knew they were human. "We can't save everyone, but we can save you." "Our children are in the deep caves," the old Catherine said. "Please save the children first." It took 3 hours to load all the survivors onto the Defiance. Elena's people worked quickly and quietly, always watching the sky for Empire ships. The Catherine children were small and scared, clinging to their parents as they were brought aboard. "Captain," Rick called from the bridge, "I'm picking up Empire signals. 3 ships coming this way fast." Elena felt her heart race. 3 Empire ships could destroy the Defiance easily. Their technology was far superior to anything the Resistance had. "How long until they arrive?" 10 minutes, maybe less. Elena made her decision quickly. "Ben, get us airborne now. Amy, make sure our passengers are secure. Rick, prepare for combat." The Defiance lifted off just as the first Empire ship appeared in the sky. It was huge and black, shaped like a giant beetle with weapons sprouting from every surface. 2 more ships flanked it, their hulls gleaming with the blue energy of their shields. "They're demanding we surrender," Rick reported. "Tell them we decline their generous offer," Elena said, "and fire everything we have." The battle was brutal and short. The Defiance's weapons barely scratched the Empire ship's shields, while their return fire tore chunks out of Elena's hull. Only her pilot's skill kept them alive as they dodged between the enemy vessels. "We can't win this fight," Ben shouted over the sound of alarms. Elena knew he was right. But they had one advantage the Empire didn't expect. Humans were unpredictable. "Take us into the asteroid field," she ordered. "Captain, that's suicide. The rocks will tear us apart." "Trust me," Elena said. The Defiance dove toward a nearby asteroid field, the Empire ships close behind. The rocky debris was thick here, with asteroids the size of buildings spinning through space. No sane pilot would try to fly through it at high speed. But Elena wasn't sane. She was desperate. Her ship twisted and turned between the asteroids, its hull scraping against rock. Behind them, the Empire ships were having trouble keeping up. Their larger size made them clumsy in tight spaces. "There." Elena pointed to a cluster of particularly large asteroids. "Hide us in there." Ben guided the ship into a narrow canyon between two spinning rocks. The Empire ships flew past, unable to see where the Defiance had gone. Elena held her breath as they searched the field, their scanners sweeping back and forth. After an hour, the Empire ships gave up and left. Elena finally allowed herself to relax. "We did it," Amy said with a smile. "We actually did it." But Elena wasn't celebrating. She was thinking about all the worlds they couldn't save, all the people they had to leave behind. The Empire was too strong, and the Resistance was too small. Later, as they flew toward a safe world where the Kethran refugees could start new lives, Elena stood alone on the bridge. She looked out at the stars and wondered what had happened to Earth all those centuries ago. The old stories said that humans had once been powerful, that they had technology that could rival any empire. But those were just legends now. Earth was gone, and its people were scattered across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. Elena didn't know that far away. In a place between dimensions, those legends were about to become real again. She didn't know that Earth had not been destroyed but transformed. She didn't know that humanity was about to return to the galaxy with power beyond anything the Empire had ever seen. All she knew was that tomorrow, she would continue the fight. Because that's what humans did. They never gave up even when the odds were impossible. Even when they were the last hope for freedom in a galaxy full of slaves. "Set course for Sanctuary Station," Elena told her pilot. "We have refugees to deliver." The Defiance jumped to hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo toward safety. Behind them, the ruins of the Kethran world continued to smoke. Another victory for the Empire. But change was coming. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. Admiral Kate Morrison felt the familiar tingle in her mind that meant space was about to change. She stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Horizon, watching the swirling colors of interdimensional space through the main view screen. After 50 years in this strange realm, they were finally going home. "Dimensional barriers are weakening," reported Dr. Alex Thompson from his science station. "We should be back in normal space within the hour." Kate nodded. It was hard to believe that only 50 years had passed since the quantum drive accident had pulled Earth into this pocket dimension. According to their calculations, 500 years had gone by in the real universe. Everyone they had ever known outside their solar system was long dead, but Earth had not been idle during their exile. The strange energies of interdimensional space had changed everything. Plants grew larger and stronger, animals became smarter and more adaptable, and humans had evolved in ways that still amazed Kate. She could feel the thoughts of her crew around her, a gentle whisper in the back of her mind. Not reading their thoughts exactly, but sensing their emotions and intentions. All humans born after the displacement had this ability to some degree. They called it the connection. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Commander Steve Brooks from the helm, "I'm getting reports from the other ships. Everyone's ready for the transition." Kate looked at the tactical display. 50 ships surrounded Earth, each one a marvel of technology that had been impossible before the displacement. Their hulls were made of metals that could shift between solid and energy states. Their weapons fired concentrated dark matter that could punch through any known armor. Their shields could adapt to any attack in real time. But their greatest advantage was the crew themselves. Humans had changed. They were faster, stronger, and smarter than their ancestors. They could survive in space without suits for short periods. They could heal from injuries that would have been fatal before. and they could work together with a unity that no other species had ever achieved. Transition beginning, Dr. Thompson announced. The swirling colors outside began to slow and stabilize. Kate felt reality shift around them as they moved from one dimension to another. It was like stepping through a doorway made of light and time. Then they were through. The view screen showed the familiar sight of normal space, with distant stars twinkling in the darkness. But something was wrong. Kate frowned as she studied the display. "Where are the colonies?" she asked. Before the displacement, there had been dozens of human settlements scattered across nearby star systems. Now Kate saw only empty space where thriving worlds should have been. "I'm scanning all the old colony locations," reported Captain Laura Mitchell from her scout ship Phoenix. "I'm not finding any human settlements. No signals, no energy signatures, nothing." Kate felt a chill run down her spine.
"Steve, take us to Alpha Centauri."
That was our largest colony. If anyone survived, they would be there. The fleet moved toward the nearest star system, their ships sliding through space faster than anything that had existed 500 years ago. Kate watched the tactical screens, hoping to see some sign of human life. What they found instead was ruins. The colony on Alpha Centauri had been destroyed long ago. Ancient blast craters marked where cities had once stood. The orbital stations were nothing but twisted metal drifting in space. "Admiral," said Amy Johnson from the medical bay, "I'm reading some old DNA traces in the ruins. Human DNA, but it's at least 400 years old." Kate closed her eyes and reached out with her enhanced senses. She could feel the echoes of what had happened here. Fear, desperation, and finally acceptance. The colonists had fought against something, but they had lost. "There," said Dr. Thompson suddenly. "I'm picking up a signal from the old emergency beacon. It's very faint, but it's still active." "Put it on speakers," Kate ordered. The message was scratchy and broken, but they could make out the words. It was Jake Sullivan's voice recorded centuries ago. "This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earthship Endeavor. Earth has vanished. Repeat, Earth has vanished. The quantum drive experiment has failed catastrophically. The entire solar system is gone. I am the last witness to what happened." The message continued with Jake's account of the disaster, but Kate had heard enough. She understood now why the colonies were empty. Without Earth to support them, the scattered human settlements had been easy targets for whatever hostile forces existed in the galaxy. "Admiral," said Commander Danny Walsh from the exploration ship Ranger, "I'm detecting alien ships approaching our position. 3 vessels, unknown configuration." Kate straightened in her chair. "Red alert. All ships, defensive positions." The alien ships were unlike anything in Earth's old databases. They were black and angular, shaped like massive beetles with weapons bristling from their hulls. Kate could sense the hostile intentions of their crews even across the vast distance of space. "They're hailing us," reported the communications officer. "Put them through." The view screen showed the image of a creature that made Kate's skin crawl. It looked like a giant praying mantis with 4 arms and multifaceted eyes. Its voice was a harsh chittering that the translator converted into words. "Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in Zephyrian space. Identify yourselves and prepare to be boarded." Kate stood up slowly. She could feel the anger of her crew through the connection, but also their readiness to fight. These creatures had built their empire on the ruins of human colonies. "This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," she said calmly. "We are reclaiming what was stolen from us." The alien commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Earth, that dead world? Your species has been extinct for centuries, primitive creature. Surrender now and we may allow you to serve the Empire as slaves." Kate smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm afraid we must decline your generous offer." "Then you will die," the alien snarled. "All ships attack!" The 3 Zephyrian vessels opened fire immediately, their weapons blazing with deadly energy. Kate felt their confidence through the connection. They expected this to be easy. They were wrong. Lieutenant Commander Steve Brooks didn't even wait for orders. His ship, the Endeavor, phase shifted out of normal space just as the enemy fire reached them. The energy beams passed harmlessly through empty space where the ship had been. A second later, the Endeavor reappeared directly behind one of the Zephyrian ships. Steve's weapons fired once, a concentrated beam of dark matter that punched through the alien vessel's hull like paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The other 2 alien ships tried to retreat, but Captain Laura Mitchell was already moving. Her fighter, the Phoenix, was so small and fast that the aliens couldn't track it. She wove between their weapons' fire like a dancer, her own guns tearing through their armor with impossible precision. In less than 5 minutes, all 3 Zephyrian ships were destroyed. Kate studied the wreckage floating in space. The aliens' technology was advanced, but crude compared to what Earth had developed during its exile. They relied on brute force rather than innovation. "That was almost too easy," said Steve over the comm. Kate nodded. "Send scouts to survey the surrounding systems. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." As her ships spread out to explore, Kate thought about the message they had received. Jake Sullivan had been wrong about one thing. Earth hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed into something far more powerful than it had ever been before, and now it was time to reclaim the galaxy. War Commander Thexkar stood in the command center of his flagship, the Devourer, watching the tactical displays with growing anger. 3 of his patrol ships had been destroyed in the outer systems, and no one knew how or by whom. "Show me the recordings again," he ordered. The holographic display showed the brief battle at Alpha Centauri. Thexkar watched as unknown ships appeared out of nowhere and destroyed his vessels with impossible ease. The attackers used technology he had never seen before, weapons that seemed to ignore shields and armor. "Analysis?" he demanded. His science officer, a smaller Zephyrian with nervous movements, consulted her instruments. "The enemy ships appear to use some form of dimensional manipulation, Commander. They can phase in and out of normal space at will. Their weapons fire what appears to be concentrated dark matter." Thexkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. In 500 years, the Zephyrian Empire had never faced an enemy with such advanced technology. They had conquered dozens of species, enslaved entire star systems, and built the largest empire in galactic history. Nothing had ever challenged their supremacy. "What do we know about these attackers?" he asked. "Very little, Commander. They claim to be from something called Earth, but our records show no such world. The nearest thing is an old legend about a vanished species called humans." Thexkar had heard the legends. Ancient stories told of a bipedal race that had once shown promise before disappearing centuries ago. Most scholars believed they had simply been wiped out by some natural disaster. "Legends don't destroy warships," Thexkar growled. "Prepare the fleet. We will investigate this Earth and eliminate whatever threat it poses." The Zephyrian war fleet was a sight to terrify any species. 200 ships of various sizes, from nimble fighters to massive dreadnoughts. They had conquered half the galaxy with this fleet, and Thexkar was confident they could handle any challenge. The journey to Earth's solar system took 3 days. When they arrived, Thexkar was surprised by what he saw. The inner planets looked normal enough, but there were structures in space that defied explanation. Massive rings of energy surrounded the planets, and strange ships moved between them with impossible grace. "Hail them," Thexkar ordered. The response came immediately. The view screen showed a bipedal creature with strange, soft-looking skin and small eyes. It wore a blue uniform with markings that suggested military rank. "This is Lieutenant Commander Steve Brooks of Earth Defense," the creature said. "You are entering restricted space. Please state your intentions." Thexkar stepped forward, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. "I am War Commander Thexkar of the Zephyrian Empire. This system is now claimed in the name of the Empire. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick." The human looked at him with what might have been amusement. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Commander. This is our home and we defend it." "Your home." Thexkar's voice rose to a screech. "Your species is extinct. Earth was destroyed centuries ago. Reports of our death have been greatly exaggerated," Steve said calmly. "You have 60 seconds to leave our space or we will remove you." Thexkar's rage was magnificent to behold. His carapace shifted from green to angry red as he processed this impossible impudence. No species had ever spoken to the Empire this way. "Destroy them," he ordered. "All ships, open fire." The Zephyrian fleet attacked with devastating force. 200 ships unleashed their weapons at once, filling space with deadly energy. It was enough firepower to crack a planet, but the humans were not where they had been. Steve's ship, along with dozens of others, simply vanished from normal space just before the weapons fire reached them. They reappeared scattered throughout the Zephyrian formation, their own weapons already firing. The first salvo destroyed 20 Zephyrian ships outright. The dark matter beams punched through shields and armor like they weren't there, causing massive explosions that lit up the darkness of space. Thexkar watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. The human ships moved like nothing he had ever seen, phasing in and out of reality, appearing behind his vessels to deliver killing blows before vanishing again. "Return fire," he screamed. "Target their ships." But it was like trying to shoot shadows. Every time his gunners locked onto a human vessel, it would phase out of existence just before the weapons fired. The humans seemed to know exactly when and where each shot would come. Captain Laura Mitchell piloted her fighter, the Phoenix, through the heart of the enemy formation. She could feel the intentions of the alien crews through the connection, sense their confusion and growing fear. It made targeting them almost trivially easy. Her weapons fired in perfect rhythm, each shot calculated to cause maximum damage. She destroyed 3 enemy cruisers in as many minutes, her ship dancing between their return fire like a leaf in the wind. "This is too easy," she reported to Admiral Morrison. "They fight like they've never faced real opposition." Kate's voice came back calm and steady. "Don't get overconfident, Laura. Maintain formation and watch for new tactics," but the Zephyrians had no new tactics. For centuries, they had relied on overwhelming force and superior numbers. They had never needed to innovate because nothing had ever challenged them effectively. Now they were facing an enemy that made their advantages meaningless. Major Kelly Adams led a squadron of assault fighters against the enemy flagship. The Devourer was massive, bristling with weapons and protected by multiple shield layers. It should have been impregnable. Kelly's pilots attacked from 6 different directions at once, their ships phasing through the outer shields as if they didn't exist. Their weapons targeted the ship's power cores with surgical precision. Thexkar felt his flagship shudder as explosions rocked the hull. "Damage report," he demanded. "Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. His damage control officer reported. "Main power at 60% and falling." "Shield generators offline. How is this possible?" Thexkar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His flagship was being torn apart by ships a fraction of its size. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the human ships appeared directly in front of the Devourer's bridge, close enough that Thexkar could see into its cockpit. The pilot was a young human female with short brown hair and calm eyes. She looked directly at him through the view screen and spoke a single word. "Surrender." Thexkar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not just for himself, but for his entire species. These humans weren't just more advanced than the Empire, they were operating on a completely different level of existence. Around him, his fleet was being systematically destroyed. Ships that had conquered star systems were being swatted aside like insects. His crews, the finest warriors in the galaxy, were helpless against this new enemy. "Signal the retreat," he said quietly. "Commander?" His tactical officer looked confused. "Signal the retreat," Thexkar roared. "All ships withdraw immediately." The surviving Zephyrian vessels turned and fled, their FTL drives carrying them away from the battlefield as fast as possible. Behind them, they left the wreckage of 60 ships and the corpses of thousands of warriors. Steve Brooks watched them go with mixed feelings. The battle had been a complete victory for Earth, but he took no joy in the slaughter. Through the connection, he had felt the fear and pain of the dying aliens. They were enemies, but they were also living beings. "Admiral," he reported, "enemy fleet is retreating. Should we pursue?" Kate's voice was thoughtful. "No, let them go. They'll carry word of what happened here back to their empire. That should give us some breathing room." As the human fleet regrouped around Earth, Steve couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy in a spectacular way. The Empire would not ignore this defeat, but Earth was ready. After 500 years of exile, humanity had returned to the stars. And they were no longer the weak, scattered species that had once struggled to survive. They were something new, something powerful, something that would change the galaxy forever. The news of Earth's return spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. On 1,000 enslaved worlds, beings who had given up hope suddenly dared to dream of freedom again. In hidden resistance cells scattered throughout Zephyrian space, leaders who had fought hopeless battles for generations began to believe that victory might actually be possible. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, reading the message that had changed everything. It was broadcast on all frequencies in every known language, reaching even the most remote corners of the galaxy. "This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," the message began. "To all free peoples of the galaxy we have returned. To those who suffer under the weight of oppression, know that you are not alone. Earth stands ready to aid all who fight for their freedom. Elena felt tears running down her cheeks. She had spent her entire life believing that humans were nearly extinct, that Earth was just a legend. Now she discovered that not only was her ancestral home real, but it had become something magnificent. "Captain," said Ben Carter, her engineer, "we're receiving targeting data for Zephyrian installations in this sector. It's incredibly detailed, more precise than anything we've ever had." Elena wiped her eyes and focused on the tactical display. The information was indeed amazing. It showed every Zephyrian ship, every weapon platform, every weak point in their defenses. With data like this, the Resistance could finally strike back effectively. "How did Earth get this information?" asked Amy Johnson. The answer came in another message, this one directed specifically to Resistance cells. It was from Dr. Linda Foster, apparently Earth's new Director of Communications. "Fellow fighters for freedom," Dr. Foster's voice was warm but determined. "We have developed quantum communication technology that allows us to coordinate across any distance instantly. We can share information, strategies, and support in real time. The Empire's greatest advantage has always been their ability to crush isolated resistance movements. That advantage no longer exists," Elena understood immediately. For the first time in centuries, every resistance group in the galaxy could work together as a unified force. The implications were staggering. The first coordinated strike came 3 days later. Elena led her small fleet against a Zephyrian supply depot, while simultaneously across the galaxy, hundreds of other resistance groups attacked similar targets. The timing was perfect. The intelligence was flawless, and the results were devastating. Elena's target was a massive space station that supplied 12 Zephyrian sectors. It should have been heavily defended, but the new intelligence showed exactly when the guard ships would be away on patrol. The Defiance and her allies struck during a 2-hour window, when only a skeleton crew defended the station. "All targets destroyed," reported Rick Palmer from the weapons station. "The Empire just lost a year's worth of supplies." Similar reports came in from across the galaxy. Weapons factories destroyed, supply lines cut, command centers captured. In a single day, the Resistance had done more damage to the Empire than in the previous 50 years combined. But the real surprise came when Earth ships arrived to support the most difficult operations. General Sam Brooks led a fleet of human vessels to the Aquarian home system, where the Empire had built a massive orbital fortress to keep the aquatic species under control. Sam watched through his ship's view screen as the fortress tried to defend itself. It was enormous, the size of a small moon, bristling with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. For 300 years, it had been the symbol of Zephyrian power over the Aquarians. "All ships, execute pattern Delta," Sam ordered. His fleet spread out in a complex formation that would have been impossible to coordinate without the connection. Each ship knew exactly what the others were doing, their movements synchronized like a perfectly choreographed dance. The fortress fired everything it had, filling space with deadly energy. But the human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They phased in and out of normal space, appearing just long enough to deliver devastating strikes before vanishing again. Captain Nick Harrison commanded the Special Forces team that infiltrated the fortress itself. His soldiers moved through the station's corridors like ghosts, their enhanced abilities allowing them to overwhelm the defenders without firing a shot. They disabled the fortress's main power core in less than an hour. When the massive structure went dark, the Aquarian Resistance finally struck. Their ships rose from the ocean worlds below, vessels designed to fight underwater but surprisingly effective in space. Together with the human fleet, they surrounded the powerless fortress. "This is General Sam Brooks to all Zephyrian forces," Sam broadcast. "Your fortress is destroyed. Your fleet is surrounded. Surrender now and you will be treated according to the laws of war." The Zephyrian commander's response was predictable. "The Empire does not surrender to inferior species." "Then you have chosen poorly," Sam said calmly. The battle was brief and decisive. The Zephyrian ships, deprived of their fortress's support and overwhelmed by the combined human-Aquarian fleet, were quickly destroyed or captured. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Aquarian system was free. Similar victories followed across the galaxy. Commander Danny Walsh led joint operations with a dozen different species, each contributing their unique abilities to the liberation effort. The Catherine provided intelligence networks. The Voltani offered their industrial capacity, and the crystalline Asari shared their advanced mathematics that helped improve human technology even further. But the real turning point came when the resistance reached the Zephyrian capital system. The Empire's homeworlds were protected by the largest fleet in galactic history, thousands of ships guarding the seat of their power. Admiral Kate Morrison stood in the command center of her flagship, looking at the tactical display that showed the enemy forces. Even with all their advantages, this would be the most difficult battle humanity had ever fought. "All forces report ready," announced Captain Laura Mitchell from her position as fleet coordinator. "We have ships from 47 different species standing by to attack." Kate nodded. The Liberation Fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships of every size and configuration, representing dozens of worlds that had suffered under Zephyrian rule. They were united not by conquest, but by a shared desire for freedom. "This is Admiral Morrison to all ships," Kate broadcast. "Today we end 500 years of oppression. Today we prove that no empire, no matter how powerful, can stand against the united will of free peoples. All ships, attack!" The battle for the Zephyrian capital was epic in scale. Thousands of ships clashed in the space around the Empire's homeworlds, their weapons lighting up the darkness like a deadly fireworks display. The Zephyrians fought with the desperation of beings who knew their empire was ending. But they were facing more than just superior technology. They were fighting against the combined hope and determination of every species they had ever oppressed. The Liberation Fleet moved with a unity of purpose that the Empire could not match. Major Kelly Adams led her fighters through the heart of the enemy formation, her pilots working in perfect harmony with alien wingmates they had never flown with before. The connection that linked all humans allowed them to coordinate, not just with each other, but with any species willing to work together. Dr. Alex Thompson's breakthrough in quantum communication meant that every ship in the Liberation Fleet could share information instantly. When one group discovered a weakness in the enemy defenses, every other group knew about it immediately. The battle raged for 6 hours before the Zephyrian fleet finally broke. Their ships scattered in all directions, fleeing toward the outer systems or surrendering to the Liberation forces. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 5 centuries was finished. Kate stood on the bridge of her ship, looking down at the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet was beautiful in its own way, with crystalline cities that sparkled in the light of its 3 suns. She felt no hatred for the beings who lived there, only sadness for what their leaders had done. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender messages from the planetary government. They're requesting terms." Kate considered her options. She could demand unconditional surrender, impose harsh penalties, even occupy their worlds. It was what they would have done to any species they conquered, but humanity had not returned to the galaxy to become conquerors. "Tell them we will accept their surrender," Kate said. "But the terms are simple. They will release all slaves, return all stolen property, and submit to a galactic tribunal to answer for their crimes. In return, they will be allowed to govern themselves under the supervision of the new Galactic Council." The Galactic Council was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not a human empire, but a federation of free worlds where every species had an equal voice. Earth would be just one member among many, its role to provide guidance and protection, not domination. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. Enslaved species returned to their homeworlds. Trade resumed between systems that had been cut off for centuries. Art, music, and literature flourished as beings who had lived in fear finally dared to express themselves.